Hello, welcome to Podcast Cold Turkey. Bienvenue au Podcast Cold Turkey. Je prends quelques secondes pour vous dire que le podcast a besoin de vos encouragements sur les différentes plateformes de podcast. Donc, je vous encourage à aller mettre les thumbs up, les étoiles, les revues aussi, peut-être écrire juste un mot pour vous dire si vous avez aimé l'expérience, si vous avez apprécié le podcast. And the podcast needs a bit of your help. It would be just so appreciated of you to put the star rating, put a little review if you appreciate it, and you can actually share as well. Vous pouvez partager le podcast. Tout ça sera très apprécié. Et sans plus attendre, je vous laisse au podcast. Salut. Hey, Randy, how you doing?
I am awesome. How are you?
I'm doing great. This is my I would say I'm really bad at meditation, so that would be kind of my meditating. Like I had, like there's only one thing, like living the present moment is right now. There's no other way. There's my dog sleeping, and she should be, like she should freaking stay there. And yeah, that's the pretty much the only thing I ask of her is that, like she's good, like she had her treats. So like stay there,
Yeah, stay asleep. Yeah, my dogs are upstairs because they wouldn't do that. They would be like on top of me, so
all
that
over
wouldn't
the
work
place.
well.
Yeah. Mine is 10 months and, like she's been kind of almost
Aw.
drilled to, like she's kind of realizing that, like there's playtime and then there's now time, which is like be there and, yeah.
Yeah.
First thing first, like I have asked my guests for the past 6-7 months. It's a bit of a twofold question. The first part of it is where are you located, and the second part of it is actually how have you been running or going through the pandemic so far?
All right. Well, I am in Welland, Ontario, Canada. So it's kind of by Niagara Falls. I'm very close to Niagara Falls. And the pandemic's actually been great in my house. I don't know if you've heard that too often. I'm usually that lone wolf, but it's made us have to slow down. My husband never stopped working throughout the whole thing, so we're lucky that way. Um, and my kid does really well with doing school at home and online, so the pandemic's actually been okay with me.
Yeah. And the reason, like it's, like it's sometimes it's a easy question, and like in your case, and sometimes it's more of heavier, like in terms of isolation and like more of the anxiety that it can provide. Um, have you seen that around you? Like kind of a growth or like a kind of a rise of people being more anxious or more, like feeling more lonely.
Um, Not from the people that I talk to, like, in my immediate circle, because most of them all have kids with special needs, so we're usually pretty much at home anyways.
Yeah.
But there are some people, at the gym that I go to that they have mentioned, I need to get back to the gym. That's how I take care of myself. That's for my mental health. I need to get back to the gym. So there's been a few people that, yeah, I've
Yeah.
seen it a bit.
It's and then I talk a lot about this on the podcast. Is like I really have in the back of my mind the like a thought, really something about are we going to go through a bit of a post traumatic situation when this is all going to be over, of people that I almost consider myself as like the a bit of a the loner, and like I don't mind it and miss like kind of the social gathering a lot, like so. Um, and at the same time, I was telling you that I work in sales. My colleague is just like, oh yeah, we should go wine and dine and meet with customers. And there's while I would love to go, like, and it's very, like it's a bit harder. But my wife, which is in sales too, does it. But there seems to be something in the back of my mind that's just like, I don't,
Yeah.
like, but and I know it's not just my character. There's something else,
Well,
and so
I think we've gotten so used to being at home because, like, even when the gym did open up, so I coach kickboxing at one of the gyms around here. And when it opened back up and I was back on the schedule for classes, in the back of my mind, I'm like, do I really have to like go out and see people? And it was almost like I was trying to think of excuses to not go, even though I absolutely love my job. I love
yeah,
being a personal trainer and I love kickboxing, but it was over a year of not having to do that. So I was like, I don't want to.
yeah.
But no particular or tangible reason I could think of for that other than I just got accustomed to being at home.
That's yeah. I mean, like it really is. It's a weird feeling. Like it's just like, oh, maybe I should. I don't know. Like there's really something around not feeling it. Like so.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is really weird. Um, let's kind of get back to the regular programming of that show by like I tend to ask the same question to every one of my guests to kind of to pick it up. um I ask my guests to kind of rewind their life story tape and bring me back to something that you consider a marking event in your life, like either by you witnessing something, you going through something, or you and your surrounding impacting who you will become, or who, like what kind of defined you at the time, like or marked you, or sculpted you as the individual that you became.
Well, there's so many moments, but let's rewind to one of the first ones that I can remember. I was about 14, and by that time I had started feeling depression. At the time, I didn't know what it was, but I did start feeling that and started having thoughts of suicide and that kind of thing. And all while I am going through this, my household is, for lack of a better term, going batshit crazy. Um,
Yeah.
so I lived with my mom. By then, I wasn't really seeing my dad. I used to go see him every other weekend, but he wasn't, he was neglectful, but he wasn't straightforwardly abusive or anything. I just don't think my dad ever really learned how to be a dad. Um, yeah, I don't want to say anything bad about him. He wasn't bad, but it wasn't home. So by the
When
time
did they separated?
I don't remember them ever being together.
Okay, so your
Yeah.
upbringing is only with mom.
Only with my
And
mom and my brother.
okay, one brother and the
One brother until I was 10, and then my sister was born. Then I was 12, and my other sister was born. My
okay,
sisters are from my dad and his, well, they're not together anymore, but his at the
yeah,
time girlfriend.
then girlfriend, yeah.
Yeah. And me and my brother have the same mom, different dads, but my brother and I lived together and grew up together.
Okay, and what was your ratio of visits or
I
kind of
used to
meeting?
go to my dad's every other weekend.
Okay,
But when I would go there, it was like not really spending time together. And I was used to like, I'm a mama's girl. I always have been.
yeah,
And so I was used to spending a lot of time with my mom. So when I would go to my dad's and it was like, and he worked shift work at a factory. So when I'd be there, a lot of times he'd be sleeping at like in the middle of the day, which to me was like, what are you doing? You only see me every other weekend. I get it as an adult because I understand shift work, how
yep,
that works now. But, in the mind of a kid, it was like, get up, let's spend time together. I'm supposed to be visiting you, but we're not visiting together. Like, what's going on? And so I'd spend most of my time at my uncle's house, who lived down the street, and hanging out with my cousins, which I mean, is got to be more fun than even if my dad did hang out with me because we were all like relatively the same age.
yeah, absolutely. And like, and I've had that deal with my ex. they're much older, and they were, like they were actually, alienated, of
Yeah.
me, kind of, like during that progress. So, but I had the kind of the deal of every other weekend, and it is such, from a father perspective, or from the parent perspective, it is such a fucking nightmare to deal with.
Yeah.
Um, it's 4 days a month, like, so the contract weighs on you to make those 4 days almost like Disney World every time.
Yeah.
Well, and what you're describing here is that, like, you had to freaking work, like, so it's hard to,
Yeah.
argue that. Um, but like every single weekend I would have him, I would actually force myself to try to think of what can I do special, where a parent shouldn't be special. A parent should
Yeah.
be a parent, like, so anyway, so like it kind of makes me think of that, like it's a messed up and not profitable for anyone deal, because,
Yeah.
and the kids gets accustomed to that, it's like, okay, so we're gonna see each other next Friday. What is it going to be this weekend? And you're like,
Yeah.
oh, you little brat, like.
Yeah. Like on my way home on Sunday, I always got McDonald's.
Exactly. Yeah,
So
yeah,
if,
yeah.
always, so if there was a time that my dad wasn't stopping, it's like, excuse you, we always do this.
What's wrong with you? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so, okay, so it's almost like, like out of those 4 days, it's almost full time with mom.
Yeah.
What kind of kid are you? Like introvert, shy?
I was an asshole.
Okay.
So when I was younger, I didn't understand myself and I didn't know how to communicate. So recently, actually, I finished going through some assessments and I found out that I actually have autism, high functioning. I hate that term, but yeah. Anyways, and so now when I look back and I see myself as that little terror asshole, I'm like, oh, this explains so much. But like I couldn't explain what I was feeling. I didn't know how to ask for help with what I was dealing with internally because I didn't understand it. And so I would act out. And
Yeah.
so my mom would she didn't know what to do with me either because I mean
No one knows.
like 25 years ago, this was not really a known thing. Like you knew about it, but people weren't talking about it. So it would just be like, hey, go to your room. If you're going to yell and scream, go in your room. Like, I don't know. And it's funny because my brother, who's 4 years older than me, he was the complete opposite. He was a good child. When he became a teenager, he totally switched around and he became the asshole. And then when I became a teenager, I was the good child.
Wow.
It's so weird. I think I started to learn how to mask things a little better and just
And
kind of
maybe, like my son is on a spectrum. He just started school this September.
okay.
So highly intelligent, um, but his social skill set is, let's say, to develop.
Yes, exactly. And that's why I hate that term high functioning, right? Because yeah, okay, I graduated at the top of my class, but don't ask me, what the meaning of a joke is or what somebody should feel like in a certain situation because I'm not gonna know.
Yeah, and it's so funny. We had a report. I think it was today or yesterday, and one specialist told us that, like, he would fake biting, and I'm like, it's my fault, like, because, like, we play like on the sofa in
Oh,
the evening, and he's like, 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 so I would tickle him, and I would kind of fake bite him on, like on his
yeah.
legs, on his arm. So like, he kind of translated that to, okay, I'm, new kid, new friend. I'm going to translate that mark of affection by fake biting you, you know.
Yeah,
So
it totally makes sense to me. That logic it makes sense.
so sh- my wife was like, it's my husband's fault. You know, like,
Yeah. Yeah, you
let
have
me
to be extra careful what you do.
well, it's it is, and you know, like it's it recently started saying I love you, and you know, like, and saw how we felt about it. But then it became a bit of a situation because he would tell any stranger we met, I love you.
Yes. Yep.
And then at the same time, I was at Costco, and you know, like, so we go to the cash register, and you know, like, the cashier, and he's like hello, and she's hello, and he goes I love you, and the lady, and I'm gonna translate what she said, but she's like, holy shit, you know, like, it's been so long since a man told me he loves me. I love you too, young boy. And
Oh,
I started to laugh, and she was like super happy, put her smile on her face, and you know, like, just, but it came, you know, like, it really, that kind of scream, almost scream of truth, came from her gut. You know, like, it was just like, holy shit, you know, like, just, and I started to laugh, and it made me think a lot, and I was like, well, you know, like, my son is actually not throwing fuck yous out
yeah.
there. You know, like,
My kid
he's
does that one.
you know, like, so um I'm like, okay, I definitely need to teach him, you know, like, there's times where, you know, like, you can actually tell someone you love him,
Yeah.
but it's not as urgent as, but then again, you know, like, it now it becomes kind of like the school system, quote unquote.
Yeah.
And so it's like, you have to do this, um like, the last report was just like, it doesn't fit in, and you're like, well, fit into what? You know, like, what are we
Yes.
talking about here? You know, like, so um yeah, so keep the ranks when the bell rings, because the other classes needs to go inside, but keep the ranks for 5 to 10 minutes.
Hmm.
You know, like, we're asking a 5, 6 year old to keep ranks, you know, like, keep it in ranks for 5 to 10 minutes. I mean,
I
like,
don't even think I could.
I mean, same for me, you know, like, and you know, like, and they don't have their phone, you know, like,
Yeah.
so yeah, I mean, anyways, so from 10 to 14, you kind of develop those coping mechanism without even knowing that
Yeah.
that's what you're doing, but you're developing kind of a, almost like a persona, I'm guessing.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, a different Randy, right? The one that the public sees. Um, and so during that time, so when I became 14, my brother was 18. My brother was actually in jail at that time. Because he was getting into all the bad stuff. He was getting into drugs. I can remember days that I would be home after school, my mom would be at work, and he would be smoking. I don't even know what it was. It wasn't weed, it was something harder. And he would be like, "Oh, you want some?" I was like, "No." I'm like 10. No, I don't want some. What? Um, and so yeah, he was getting into all that bad stuff. And so when he was in jail, actually, my mom got married to my stepfather. And he was a raging alcoholic, which he hid before they got married. Um, and then as the marriage progressed, he started drinking more. So my mom, it seemed like she didn't have time for me. And again, as an adult, I'm like, oh, you put your effort where you think it needs to be. Cause like my youngest also has autism. And then my older stepchild doesn't. And so we would spend a lot of time with the younger one because the older one, they're fine. So
Yeah.
I get that now as a
Yeah.
parent. But in my teenage brain, all I was thinking was, you're going to the jail to visit Brandon all the time. You're spending all your time with Kaz, and we're not doing any of the things that we used to do together. I'm
Yeah.
just chopped liver. Like, you don't actually want me. You don't care about me.
With puberty, with like the kind of the teenage years, like just some
Yeah.
transformation inside and outside, like, so you're transforming into a young woman, and you're missing kind of almost like the attention of managing that, like
Yeah,
of and you
exactly.
were saying, you started off by saying that, like the 14th year of your life is actually a year where um, there's actually, when looking back, actually signs of depression and signs of almost darkness, let's say it that way.
Yeah.
Um, so were you keeping that shell of, or that mask of the still happy girl, so that
Oh,
like
yeah.
they don't worry about you, and you don't take the caring time of your brother out?
Yeah, I don't know if I did it as much at home. I think at home I just really just stayed in my room because my stepfather, he'd get home after work and start drinking. And I didn't want to be around that because then there would be yelling, there would be throwing things. Um, so I would pretty much hide in my room, or I'd go over to a friend's house after school, or and just stay there until I had to go home so that I just didn't have to see anybody at home. I'd basically hide out at a friend's house.
How long your brother stayed in jail?
Um, at that time, he was in jail for about a year. And then when he got out of jail, my mom didn't want him to come live with us. Um, for good reasons, really. She was trying to protect me, really, from all of his drama. So she rented him a place to live so that, she didn't want him to be homeless. She just didn't want him living with us. And that worked for a little while, but then my stepfather trying to be the good guy or something. I don't even know what he was thinking. He told my brother where we lived and said, "Yep, you can come live with us, no problem." Oh, that was a lot of problems. So then when he came to live with us and he was still doing all the bad stuff that he was doing before, and all of a sudden his girlfriend moves in with us. And
Holy shit.
them together, very toxic relationship, very, very toxic relationship. Then they had a baby, my nephew. He is adorable. I love him. He's now 17, and taller than me, but
Yeah.
So they had him, and so now it's my mom, my stepfather, who's still drinking and drinking way more now with having a baby in the house, my brother doing who knows what, his girlfriend, who also I think does who know what, me and a baby, and it was craziness. Family Children's Services was involved for a long time then, and we had to go and visit my nephew at Family and Children's Services for a while. I would skip school just to go and see him because I was like, this is more important than going to school. I skipped school a lot, like a lot.
No doubt. No doubt.
And not just for that, but even before he was born, I hated high school. You see all these movies about how high school is the best time of your life. I hated high school. I hated every moment of high school. I skipped every chance I got,
It
which
is
was
not.
almost every day.
Yeah. It's I recently, like with a guest, remembered that when like when I first registered on Facebook, there was an high school group created, like kind of, like the, I don't know, the alumni of,
Alumni, yeah.
yeah, and some of, I think it was a jocks or a jockette, uh, saying this was the best time of my life. And one individual that I remember vaguely, but remember, actually, I'm not kidding, like a huge paragraph of ranting saying, "Oh, your time was great. Well, mine was a fucking nightmare.
Yeah.
Mine was darkness, shame, bullying. Like it was just, my time was a fucking. It was,
Yeah.
and it was shocking because I remember we would pick on him. Like just, but
Kids are mean and it's what we do.
yeah,
It
and
doesn't make it right, but
I'm 46, and I'm, like I have a group of four, or a group of four friends, or humor is, it's tough to handle looking from
yeah.
outside. Like it is. So I've always been kind of used to that. Like I think I'm tough skinned on this, and I was probably kind of the easy to pick on, because like I was kind of the nerd leaving nerdness because I didn't want it, kind of the
Yeah.
rebel, but almost too bright to hang on with the, like the anyway, so like it would have been easy to pick on me, but it would like it would just I wouldn't feel it, like it was just like, meh, all right,
Yeah.
and I ended up being like the guy that did the after prom party at my parents' country house. So like it
Oh,
was just,
jeez.
yeah, I mean, which
I was
by
the
the way
kid
was
that wasn't invited to the parties, so.
yeah, so yeah, and that was pretty much like what that man today said. He said, like I'm almost like still way like way on him, like that still marked and hurt by like some of the people's behavior. I don't think I was part of the people that like the trauma he was expressing. I was more like low profile, but it kind of blew me a bit away to see that for some people it is much worse. It is not a good time, like you feel like
Yeah. Feel
like
like shit. Like,
feel like shit.
and I didn't want anybody at school to know what was going on at home. So I had to pretend to be something else entirely. Oh, yeah, everything's hunky dory when really I didn't want to go home ever. Um,
Or invite someone home.
yeah, I never invited people over to my house. If I did invite you over, you had to be like a really close friend. Because people,
And warned and prepared
yeah,
and
yeah,
debriefed.
yeah, I didn't invite people over. I was always, let's go to your house. It was never, let's go to my house. And if we did, it was like, let's go straight upstairs to my room. We're not leaving my room. This is where we're staying. So yeah, it was awful. And the teachers, I remember my grade 10 science teacher. He was talking to me in the hallway one time. I don't remember what his exact words were, but they were something along the lines of, you will never amount to anything.
Jeez, that's tough.
And hearing something like that from a teacher who's supposed to be giving you knowledge and recognizing when you need help. I'm sorry, part of their job is to recognize if a child
They're
is
fucking
struggling,
adults.
right? And you just told somebody who's already thinking about killing themselves that they're not going to amount to anything. So, okay, I'm not going to amount to anything anyways. Let me just go off myself now. Like, that's what I was thinking at the time.
Yeah. And how old are you? Like 15, 16?
Yeah, I would have been 15 at the time. Yeah, 15.
And so, fuck, like I've never gone, it would be a bit of a lie, but like my if I had dark thoughts, it was much later in my life when I like when I was pretty much like in my end of my 20s, and
Yeah, I had them
right
then too.
yeah, but right before I stopped using and ended up in therapy, I had kind of would I can I was it scenarized, or like did I have a plan? Like the plan was actually to catch an accident, kind of severe enough that I would be allowed to like keep using because of pains, like
Oh,
just
okay,
because
yeah.
of pain, like it was kind of so it wasn't really like end it all thing. It was, well, it was end the suffering.
Yeah.
And since there were no other option but to keep using, like I would use the accident as a kind of an excuse to keep using, like it was
Yeah.
fucked up mathematics in my head,
Yeah.
but
But I like the way you said that. It was about ending the suffering. And I think, like, for myself, that's what it was. And I think for most people that have depression or have suicidal thoughts, that's what it is. It's not, I just want to die. It's, I want the suffering. I want the pain to stop.
yeah.
And we don't see any other way to make that happen.
Was there because I know that like teens like self-mutilation, like hurting yourself, was this something that was
I
part of your
actually didn't. I thought about it, but I never did. Um, I don't know, by the grace of God, I just never did.
absolutely
And I thought about it a lot. I used to watch the movie 13 over and over and over and over again. And that was, I guess, kind of my way of doing it, because in that movie, the girl does self-harm. So it was almost like if I watched somebody else do it, then I didn't have to do it.
Yeah. I get it.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
So,
so what happened next? I mean, like, because this is heavy, right? Like, I mean, like
yeah.
every morning you wake up and it doesn't get better.
Yeah, exactly. And in fact, it just gets worse because now we're dealing with Family Children's Services, and then we're dealing with my brother and his girlfriend breaking up, getting back together, breaking up. When I was 17, my friend actually said, it was August. School starts in September here. And she said she knew what was going on because she was my best friend since grade 9. And now we're going into grade 12. And she said to me, why don't you come and move into my house, like with my parents? And I was like, okay. And I didn't even talk to my mom about it or anything. I had to get out. It was literally, if I didn't get out of that house, I probably would have ended up killing myself. Like I couldn't be there anymore with all of that. And so I moved in with her. You're actually the first podcast that's gotten this part of the story. So there you go. And so I moved. I remember I was packing my stuff and my mom came home after work. She's like, what are you doing? I go, I'm leaving. I'm moving out. I can't be here anymore. And she cried. She didn't try to stop me or anything, but she did cry about it. And I moved in with my friend. I was there for 6-7 months living at her parents' house. It was better in a sense because there was a lot less drama. There was, no Brandon there, no Kaz there. There was a lot less drama in that way, but it wasn't my home. It wasn't where I belonged. And I mean, I had my own bed there and everything. Me and my friend, we got along fine, but it still never, ever, ever felt like home. So eventually I did move back in to my mom's house because Kaz left. So I moved back in there for a very short stint. So I had graduated. I moved in, graduated from high school, and then I found another apartment that I rented with a girl from work who I was working with at the time at Subway. Because after you move back home, after you've moved out, it's kind of weird.
It's not home.
Yeah.
Still, like it's like it's kind of
Exactly.
okay. So I'm back at mom's.
Yeah.
Like it's really weird.
It is. And it was still very broken, even though my stepfather was gone. My brother was still there. And it was a very broken feeling. Like you could tell that my mom was in a lot of emotional pain. And it didn't feel good. So I moved in, rented a place with a coworker, lived there for a couple months, was a fucking idiot and got pregnant. When then broke up with him because, like I said, I was a fucking idiot. So at the time, all I wanted was somebody to tell me that I was an okay person, to say, I love you. It's okay. And so I was like, okay, yeah, sure. Love you too. And in my head, I'm like, I don't even fucking know you, but sure. Love you too. Because you're saying it to me. So that makes me feel like I have to say it back to you. And I never really wanted it to lead down certain roads, but it did. And so, yeah, I ended up pregnant, and then I ended up homeless because I didn't want to be with him. Like, I knew I didn't want to be with him. I knew that before I was even pregnant, and I had broken up with him, but I had nowhere to go. At that time too, my mom had moved in with her, was renting a room off of my uncle. So I had nowhere to go. I ended up moving in with my aunt for a little bit. She was always like a second mom to me. She always took very good care of me. And so I lived there for a while I was pregnant. And then with my two cousins there, it was all right. There was a pull-out couch I slept on, and we watched lots of horror movies. It was fun. Then I had my baby. in October of 2006. And I moved back in with my mom because at that time she had bought a house with her boyfriend at the time, who we all thought was a great guy. Turns out he was a cokehead. My mom attracts really great people.
It usually is the case, like when, because if you have dependence, you have codependence.
Yeah.
Like one doesn't come without the other.
Yeah.
Because they wouldn't get along. Like so your mom must be the prototype of a excellent codependent.
Yeah, my mom doesn't do well by herself. She's lived in my house now for 9 years and was supposed to be here for a few months.
Yeah, so here we go. Here it is.
Yep. So I moved in there. At first, everything was going really well. And then I don't even remember exactly how, but my brother ended up moving in there again too. And I don't understand why Wayne was like, yeah, sure, come move in with us. After my mom's like, no, but whatever. So he moved in. So his girlfriend moved in.
Yeah. And so
Right?
back to...
Yeah, same story on repeat now, except this time I've got an infant. My nephew was living with his other grandma, his maternal grandma. And so we saw him sometimes. So that situation was a lot better. This girlfriend was a different girlfriend. And they have another baby.
Yeah.
Who is taken away again. Then they have another baby who... it was a long story. Anyways, so there's babies in the house again. And we're fine. And my brother was drinking pretty heavily. I don't know for certain if he was back into drugs, but I can only assume so because he was before. But at that time he was still holding down a job, but afterwards they would go out and drink after, or drink on the work site. It was like construction. And then Wayne, my mom's boyfriend, he started getting really verbally abusive and stuff, and you could hear him downstairs yelling and screaming about everything under the sun. And he was a drinker. Later, I find out that he was also doing coke. And so I was like, hey, I have to get out of here. Again, like I need to find somewhere to go. I put in an application for housing to get subsidized housing because I was on maternity leave. Then I'm on maternity leave, find out my job is closed, so I have no job to go back to when I'm off maternity leave.
Wow.
Yeah, and then I was also looking at just going into like women's shelters just to get out of there. I was really lucky though because I did get into subsidized housing. It was a really nice apartment. And when my kid was 6 months old, I met my husband. Well, I didn't meet him. We actually had met a few years prior to that, but we actually started dating then. And so that's like almost 15 years ago now. So there's the good part.
Congrats.
So yeah, when my kid was about 6 months old, we started dating, and he was going to college. So that was June, and he was already registered to go to college in the September. And I was like, I don't know what I would even go for. And so I looked up, and there wasn't a lot of program choices at that time because it was so close. So I went into, it's called pre-community services. I went in there, I did that program. And then I also transferred into another program, did community and justice services, which was really cool. I did my placement for that in a drug and alcohol recovery house. So that was really cool. I learned a lot of stuff there. And things were pretty even there. Things are pretty good because I now had my actual own apartment, just me and my baby. And I was going to school. I really enjoyed college. College was an excellent time in life. Not high school, but college.
Yeah.
It was awesome. Even though I am not in the field anymore at all, it was great. So things are going pretty good. I tried to help my brother one more time. He's like, I need to get sober. I need to get clean. I can't keep doing this. I can't keep going in and out of jail. I said, okay, fine. You can stay with me for a little bit. So he came and he stayed with me because I didn't live in the same city. I lived like 20 minutes away and he didn't drive. So he's like, hey, I don't know anybody. I don't know where to go and get drugs. Okay. So he stayed at the house. For the first week, he was good. He didn't go anywhere. He didn't talk to nobody. He was, clean and sober. And then New Year's Eve comes. Well, you just
Yeah.
have to go out for New Year's Eve. You
have to.
have to go to the bar. And I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
not. I'm staying home with my 1-year-old. Why don't you just stay with us? No, I have to. I go, okay, well, then you're not coming back. It's really that simple. You leave right now, you're not coming back. So he did. He left. And he called me later that night because he had overdosed. And the paramedics brought him back. That was the first time that I knew about him overdosing. He probably had done it before, and I know he's done it since. So I said, no, you still can't come back, especially now that you're back doing drugs. You can't come back. Like, I have a baby in the house. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
And I really didn't talk to my brother much over the next 13-ish years. I saw him here and there at family functions. I talked to him periodically, but I really didn't talk to him much. Didn't really have any relationship with him past that, which is really sad because growing up, we were close. We'd play video games together. We'd play superheroes, whatever, watch Saturday morning cartoons.
What a big brother is. Yeah.
Yeah. So I definitely lost him probably in my early 20s. I really... That would be when I lost him. And then, things were okay-ish in life. Then for whatever reason, 8 years old and kids, there's a big turning point. So look forward to that. So at 8 years old is when my kid's autism really shined through. You could really tell there was a big issue. So me and my husband, we knew early on that something was different. But because he's fully verbal, very talkative, quite intelligent, people didn't believe us when we're like, yeah, but you can talk to him and he doesn't realize that you're talking to him, or, he doesn't do appropriate things in social situations. And so it wasn't until he was 8 that he finally got diagnosed with autism. And we went through a lot of violent meltdowns, and I'm talking like violent. I've had stuff thrown at me. I've had him chase me. I've had him try to push me into a road, like just crazy shit that people don't want to believe, but it happens. Eventually it turned from outward meltdowns for him to self-harm for him. And so here I am. My depression's coming back now because, well, I'm just the worst parent in the world. I can't help my kid. What the fuck good am I? Yeah. And so I'm trying to go to work. I'm working in social services at the time as an employment counselor. So I'm going to work all day, listening to everybody else complain about their life and how it's so horrible. Then I'm going home to my life where my kid is trying to kill himself. So it progressed from just self-harm of like cutting to actual suicide attempts. I cannot even tell you how many times we had to take him to the hospital because he actually tried to kill himself. He has tried to cut his wrists. He's tried to hang himself. He has tried to take my antidepressants. We have a safe in the kitchen now where all of our knives go, all of our medications go, because it was so bad that you couldn't leave him by himself. It was constantly him trying to kill himself and going to the hospital, and the hospital going, oh, he's fine now, and sending them home because our mental health system is fucking ridiculous.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah. And the one time he even looked at the doctor in the eye and say, I feel like suicide. And they're like, kids don't say that. He's fine. He's faking it. Like, what the fuck do you mean he's faking it? We're here because he just tried to slit his wrists, but he's faking it. You fucking kidding me right
now?
Yeah. So yeah, I would drive to work crying. I would drive home from work crying. I would hide in the bathroom at work crying. I ended up taking a leave of absence from work for a mental stress leave, trying to figure out what the fuck I was going to do. We were being called, like before I took the leave, we were being called constantly to go to school to pick him up because the school couldn't handle the meltdowns. They couldn't handle him. So that was grade 3. They had in grade 4, they put him in a different class. School didn't think that worked, so they put him in another class for grade 5. School didn't think that worked. They put him in a different class for grade 6. We ended up homeschooling for most of grade 6 because he refused to go to this other class they put him in. And then in grade 7, so again, all through that, I am just trying to keep it together. And there was definitely days that I probably should have taken myself to the emergency room and said, I feel like killing myself. I feel like driving off a bridge, because that was my plan. I had a bridge all picked out. So where I live, there's lots of bridges, oodles of them. Anywhere you go, you'll find something. So I had picked out a specific bridge that I was just going to drive my car off the road one day after work and just sink into the water. This was a bridge that not too many people go around, so nobody would see me as I just left. Because I didn't see any other way out of all of this. Like, obviously I was useless. My house was a disaster. I didn't know how to help my kid. My work was subpar by this point because, well, my life was falling apart. And then I had to take time off work. So I left all my coworkers doing my job for me because I'm not there. And then, of course, me and my husband are arguing all the time just because neither of us knew what the fuck to do.
Yeah.
So it was pretty bad. It was really bad. I went into therapy. I got on antidepressants. They did help, but life was very, very difficult. My kid was in and out the hospital, in and out of different therapies. Then in 2018, I got diagnosed with cancer. So, that was loads of fun too. So I had cervical cancer. At first they said, oh, it's just one little bad part. So I had a surgery. They took out that one little bad part, sent it away for more tests, came back and said, actually, we have to take out everything. And I was like, oh, okay. So then I had to have another surgery and I had a full hysterectomy. At that time, my kid was still going in and out the hospital. He was now finally, though, on a wait list to go into a treatment place for 3 months that would help him. We were really hoping that was going to coincide with when my surgery was, but it didn't. Had the surgery. Ended up getting an infection after the surgery that put me back in the hospital and almost killed me. And so then afterwards, in September, he finally got into the treatment place. It's called CPRI. And there's mixed reviews on it, depending who you ask for. For us, it was a godsend. It was the absolute best thing. So him going there, he went there. We dropped him off Sunday night, picked him up on Friday. So he stayed there during the week. They had school there. They had all their rooms or whatever. Then he'd come home for the weekend. And so during that week, I could actually breathe. I could go, okay, what the hell do I need to take care of myself so that I don't drive off of this bridge? And by then I had quit social services because I knew that I couldn't go back to that. I knew that even when he came home, we were going to have to make a lot of adjustments to make sure that we could manage the house and everything. So after that 3 months, he came home and things have been a lot better with him. He has not tried to kill himself in 3 years now.
Congrats.
Yeah, we have not had any hospital visits. We've had a few little meltdowns here and there. We've had some crying fits, but it's a lot better for him. My depression is being managed a lot better now with having gone to therapy and my antidepressants that I take. At one point, I was like, oh, I'm fine. I'll stop taking antidepressants. Don't do that. No.
No. No. That's a bad idea. That's a bad idea.
Yeah. I have to learn the hard way.
And do you have like a and when I'm going to ask, do you have like a strict diet? But when I say diet, it's not about necessarily like the food or physical part of it, but I usually ask my guests by the time the podcast ends, what is like the Randi-Lee daily regimen of stuff she has to do to take care of her mental health, physical and spiritual health, kind of in line and in check?
Oof, that's a big question. Okay, so I eat my 3 meals a day, breakfast, lunch, dinner. Always have snacks in between. Try to eat lots of fruit. Fruit is good. I have to work out pretty much every day. Today I didn't, but my body was super sore from last night, so it's okay. Rest day. I have to work out and napping. I take a nap almost every day, and that really, really helps a lot. Yeah. I do kickboxing as part of my workout, which is nice. And just slowing down, which is why I said the pandemic was good, because I used to always say, oh yeah, I could do that. Yeah, I could do that. Yeah, I could do that, because I technically can, but I can't do it all.
Yeah.
So doing that and then being more authentically me has helped a lot. I don't try to hide all of my craziness, all of the things that make me who I am. I don't try to hide those anymore because now if people don't like me, that's their fucking problem. I
Yeah.
don't care anymore. I'm gonna be me now.
Yeah. You drop the masks because anyways you don't have time to entertain them. Like that's mostly what happens. Like it's you know yeah. I mean, like it's already so much fucking work being yourself.
Yeah.
And when I say that, it's just you know like the censorship comedy taking place like right in the frontal
Yeah.
cortex, whatever. Like it's just handling these folks. Like is a
Yeah,
is a job.
exactly. Oh,
And so when you need to add a mask to kind of the persona that you'd love for the people to see or to know, um, I mean it doesn't make any sense. Like it's impossible to manage. So um,
it's exhausting.
it is.
Um, so yeah, everything was going really well, but one other big thing that happened this year,
Okay.
um, in May 20th, I got a phone call. Well, actually, first I got a Facebook message from my brother's ex-girlfriend that said that the cops were trying to get a hold of my mom and they couldn't because she was at work. So I needed to call her. So I call her and she told me that my brother was dead. And I was like, what are you talking about? What do you mean? And so she gave me the phone number of a Streetworks worker. So Streetworks is a drug program that they try to help the people who are living on the streets who are addicted to drugs in my region. So she gave me the number of the person that found my brother. So I call her. She was super nice. Apparently, my brother and her went to school together like a million years ago. So she had met me. I don't remember, but she was super nice. And she said that my brother had overdosed and she was crying. And she's like, I'm so sorry. I tried to save him. She tried to do that naloxone stuff. I tried, it didn't work. And I was like, what? It didn't seem real. And she said, I'm like, she was still there in the room that it all happened. Because I guess whoever my brother was with at the time called her and said, he's not waking up. You need to come here. So she went there as fast as she could and she called 911 on her way. But it was too late by then. And then she let me talk to the police. And that's when it actually hit home, when I actually talked to like a person of authority.
Yeah.
And I was standing in line outside of the pool store because I had to get my pool water tested. And I just started bawling and I sat down on the ground and I'm crying. It's my turn. The guy comes up and I hand him my water. I'm like, I need my water tested. So I was like, okay. So I call my mom and I don't usually call her, and she was at home and like I was going to be home in 10 minutes. So obviously that's kind of a red flag. I said to my mom, I said, don't answer your phone. Don't go anywhere. Wait for me. So she obviously knows I'm bringing bad news. So I get home and I go in the house. I say, Mom, sit down. And I start patting the chair. I'm like, you need to sit down. She's moving slower than a snail. I was like, you need to hurry up and sit down. She goes, no, because I know as soon as I sit down, you're going to tell me something bad. I said, you need to sit. So as soon as she sat down, I was just like, Brandon's dead. I couldn't get out anything other than that. I couldn't tell her the story right away. And so we start crying and we're hugging and all that stuff. And it's so bizarre over the last 5 months how close my family has gotten again. So growing up, me and my cousins, my aunts, we were all very, very close on my mom's side. And then as we grew up, we got farther apart. And with my brother being into drugs and all that, we had to distance ourselves from him because we had tried to help him. It didn't work. So we were kind of trying that tough love thing. And with everything going on in my own world, I had to set a boundary.
Mm-hmm.
And so that boundary was that I couldn't I couldn't deal with your shit, basically. If you wanted to talk to me, you want to talk to my kid, you're going to have to be clean. Like, you can't be talking to us and doing drugs. It's just not going to work. And so in the last year, I talked to him twice because he was at my aunt's house. So we Zoomed twice. At both times, I had to say, no, you can't come. So the one time was before Christmas. I said, no, you can't come over for Christmas. Not only is there COVID and we're not allowed, but, you can't be on drugs. And then I talked to him like 2 weeks or so before he actually died. And again, he just kept saying, I just want to see you. I just want to be a family. Why can't we all be a family again? And so for those that are listening, it is the absolute hardest thing to set yourself a boundary, especially when now I have to look back and go, is there something I could have done? And in my head, when he first died, I kept thinking, what could I have said differently so that this didn't happen? But I know that there's nothing actually that I could have done. He had to do the work. But
Absolutely.
But when somebody dies, that's your first thought. Because he was only 36. He died 1 month before his 36th birthday. And I just kept thinking, is there something else I could have done? I could have said. And there's not.
I'm so sorry to hear that. Like, this is, and it's like for people that listens, this podcast has been actually talking for more than 2.5 years to that really tiny percent of people that overcomes that tragic sickness, which is addiction.
Yeah.
What Randy is actually describing here is the majority. There's 3 outcomes that, like from every anonymous literature, you're going to hear 3 outcomes, actually 4, which is the 4th would be sobriety, but it's jail, hospital, or morgue.
Yeah.
Those are the 3 options you got. And so that's why it hits hard, because, like I if I could, like I would have, dead guests, and I'm not making a bad joke here.
No,
I'm
it's
saying,
true.
Meaning that, like the majority of the people that would be on that podcast would probably be people that didn't do the cold turkey, didn't do the, like the and the other thing that, like the guilt that you're going through is actually a precious tool of the egocentric people that are the addicts. Yeah. It's a precious tool, so for not to be a codependent or an enabler, your family and yourself did exactly what should be done, which is not falling for that guilt.
Yeah.
That egocentric, addicted people.
He was great at doing that.
I mean, I was a fucking Jedi at this.
Yep.
Like so. And it's probably one of, even sober, this is something you need to be super careful about, because like it was all about my own little tiny person, and like it's so. You're really gonna do that to me, Dad? Like it was, like all of that kind of shit, the cry on command, and like all of that stuff.
Yep.
Like so. I don't know your brother, but I know your brother, right?
Yep.
Because
the journey he went on.
And we share the gene. Like we share kind of that. Like that gene. So, so it's super important for like the people that listens, that what Randy's describing is actually like the majority of the guests that I'll never have on are those that fall to that, like to that battle. And while at the same time you're like you're describing, which is probably the source of guilt of all of the parents. I myself am a parent of like my oldest, which is actually right now using, and but like he's not calling me because he knows that like my option or kind of, like the environment on which I'm going to allow him to meet with me and my family, and is going to be you don't use, and like you've kind of like started like what's going to be needed for you to get clean at some point, so that involves like not using and so on. This is for me, it's I appreciate like like you opening your heart to this, because it's a it's a fucking tragedy, so there's no other word.
Yeah. And
no other words
for the family members that are left behind. I mean, we're going through lots of emotions. One of those emotions, and it's totally okay to feel this way, is pissed off.
Yeah.
So, little bit of a funny story, because maybe not keep crying. So when we actually buried him, we had the funeral about a month before we buried him, because my mom wanted to have his body there for the funeral and then cremate him. So I put him down in the hole, and I'm like, haha, I put you down in the hole. But then afterwards, my mom wanted everybody to go up and say something to him. Not for everyone to hear, but just, say something to him. So I was the person. I went around and I told everybody, okay, it's your turn. Go up there. Because we were only allowed a few people there because of COVID.
Yeah.
So when it was my turn, I went up and I crouched down, and I was giving him shit. I was like, what the fuck are you doing right now? Like, why did you do what you did? You were not supposed to do that. Well, mom is not supposed to be burying you right now. I'm supposed to be fighting with you when we're burying her about what we're doing. I'm like, this is not. And my godmother walks by and she hears me berating him. And she goes, you're going to be mean to the poor guy? He's dead. I'm like, it's okay to be mad. And all of my grief, all of my everything kind of just came out, because for the weeks leading up to that, I had to be the strong one for my mom, because she doesn't have anybody else now. It was me. So I was doing basically all the funeral arrangements. My mom had to sign off, but she wasn't making any decisions. So I made all the decisions for everything. And then finally I was like, no, we're allowed to be mad right now. Does anybody here actually want to be here right now? And they're all like, well, no. I'm like, exactly. So why can't we just say what we're all thinking and say, Brandon, you're pissing us off. You were supposed to get clean. You were not supposed to die. We're not supposed to be burying you right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, it doesn't mean that we don't love him. In fact, it probably means that we love him a lot because we're mad at him right now. Because you don't get mad at people that you don't love. Right? So just a little bit of a funnier story, but it's okay to be mad at them.
Absolutely. Not only that, I mean, like, I think it's almost like healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like when I've been hearing story for the past, not for the past, but for about, like 300 hours of people that, and with, like some multiple relapses, and, like just, like some told me that, like on Christmas Eve, he finally grabs, finally gets allowed or permission to have his kid for, like for Christmas, and, comes cravings, and, he has a choice of leaving his kids that he probably hasn't seen for a year, and go have a hit, and actually fucking leaves his kids there, and because the addiction is too strong, again. So the bottom line is that like you are angry at addiction more than anything, like it's and it's really, really hard for people to understand how strong that shit is, like it's, and actually it's so strong that it kills, like it's so strong that people will like use to point of death, and and overdo it, and just the obsession and the compulsion of just repeating it, like even though he probably was on the bricks of death of multiple times in his life, like and
well, we went to clean out his room. I had another little breakdown then, because you see what his life amounted to. There was nothing that we found of any sentimental value to really keep from him. A few of his drawings, but really there wasn't anything there. And you look around and there was tons of needles and tons of those used naloxone kits. So that just shows that he was using and was pretty much on the brink of death multiple times because the naloxone kits had been used.
Yeah.
I had to walk away.
And so
I walked away and cried outside.
what is your life? And that was how long ago?
That was in May of this year. So
Jesus
5
Christ.
months now or so.
So how are you doing today?
Today I'm good. It really sucks because ultimately his death doesn't change my life much because I didn't have much of a relationship with him before.
Yeah.
The biggest change was really that I don't have that hope now any longer. Because I always hoped that he was going to get clean, that we would be able to have that relationship. Because like him and my kid are so much alike. They're both really good artists. They love video games. Like they would have gotten along so freaking well. And I always wanted that relationship for them. But
Yeah.
so the biggest change was that the hope is gone. But because he wasn't very involved in my life, it doesn't change my day to day at all, which also kind of hurts to know that it doesn't change it because it should change it.
Yeah.
But other than that, I mean, things are going well. My kid is doing really well in school. He's in grade 10 now. He's actually going physically to the school most days, which is a really big deal.
That's awesome.
I've been working my butt off at work, writing all my books. So I'm an author. So I've got lots of books out there and hosted my own YouTube show. I talk about mental health, which I'm loving. And yeah, things are pretty good other than that.
Yeah. I have to thank you, Randi-Lee, for your time. Like it was a great conversation. Like I appreciate, like you opening. This is something that I haven't discussed often on the podcast. So like relative to people that, are going through addiction and, over their own challenges in life, like, so while, like you shared, like a shit ton of the challenges you went through,
There's been a few,
like it, I appreciate the fact that, like you shared with the listeners, what it kind of looks like for a sibling to, or for, like a parent to go through, their relative addiction. And, last question I got is, like you said you were other, where can people find you?
So I'm on Facebook, and if you search RB Writing, you'll find me. And then my YouTube channel is called The Write or Die Show, but it's write like you're writing something, WRITE. So Write or Die Show. I'm on TikTok. That's my new love. I'm on TikTok at The Write or Die Show. I'm also on Instagram at Randi-B Writing. Gotta say, I don't use it much. I love TikTok a lot more. And all of my books are on Amazon. So if people just Google my name, or not Google, but Amazon search my name, Randi-Lee Boslaw, they'll be able to find all of them. And I write a lot about mental health. And eventually I will be writing about my brother. That's in the works. Maybe next year, hopefully it'll publish.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Randy. Like everything, like everywhere we can find Randy is going to be provided in the description of the episode. So, like just scroll down, whatever platform you're listening it to. Which, by the way, just put a fucking 5-star and a rating and the reviews on my podcast. Like that
Damn
helps.
right,
like,
do it. Yeah.
Like I try to use less and less of my intro. Like I spare you my squeaky voice for the intro now. Like I've been stopping doing that for a while. But god damn it, put a review in,
like and subscribe to the channel,
and to Randy's too. Like so. Here's my like my PSA right at the end of that podcast. Thanks so much, Randy. It was a great hour spent, and I wish you the best. Like sorry again for your loss. Like it's a tragic but so often told story that like it yeah, like you're reminded of like the how fucking important like we have to care about that sickness. Every single time you hear even people like like I have a flash of the last time being hit by like Whitney Houston dying, and I was like, holy shit, like even with all the money in the world, and like with anyways, I really thank you for that. Like it was a great time.
Yes, I had fun. Thanks for having me on the show.
Thank you. Take care.